So welcome everybody to the to this February meetup of Data for Good. We're thrilled to have Joan with us this evening, talking about accelerating digital transformation in the public sector. So Joan, welcome. I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. You'll do a much better job than I will. And yeah, thanks so much for being here this evening.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for inviting me today to present on a topic that I'm quite passionate about. It is the GovLab set up in Alberta. And yeah, let's get started. First, I'll describe a little bit about me. Yeah, Joan Vlasschaert, I'm the manager of data science, and I work for AltaML, which is a private company, consulting company that does all things machine learning. My background is geospatial. I think it all started with being curious about the world around me and wondering why things are happening at a location and just trying to, you know, it's more a passion really and became a profession. My first degree is environmental science and earth processes, and then I did a master's in geographic information systems, looking at automating the detection of human disturbance features in satellite imagery. So that's looking for forestry cut blocks and roads and seismic lines and well pads in forested areas. And yeah, I've had a whole career in finding geospatial solutions, a lot of earth observation, anything with satellite imagery or drones, that sort of thing, and any kind of spatial analysis. So adding a location to the data and figuring out patterns and answering why. I also volunteer a lot in geospatial nonprofits, including having a couple opportunities with Data for Good. And that's how we know each other is through my being able to participate in, there was a homelessness challenge. And one of my very first projects was just mapping out where the emergency shelters were and their capacity over time, and then the overflow opening up. So that was kind of the very first project. But then there was also a one-day weekend event that I participated in, and then I found out about the micro projects and pitched an idea and see if anybody would join me. And sure enough, there's a group of about 5 or 6 of us that got together to map Calgary's air quality and just find the data, look at different ways, looking at historical data, predict future data, find a way to make a Twitter bot to post hourly updates on Calgary's air quality. So if you have any questions about that, I'd probably send you a link after the presentation. These pictures here, I should just show you. Yeah, this is, I didn't know, Jeff, that you also like cross-country skiing. So do I. I love it. And there's so many great places around Calgary to go, and even within town. And I like skating and playing hockey, snowboarding. I go to the lake a lot in the summer and go hiking and camping. That's where you'll find me most of the summer. So that's me. How about, what is this GovLab? It's new. We're just in the first year of this lab, but it took a little bit of time to create it. And it's based on this principle of, you know, of innovation, connecting the government agencies, public sector, with academia and private industry in order to make, you know, a transformation within the public sector. And so the goal is, you know, bring innovation, upskill talent, create solutions, all using ethical AI. And this should help in solving the government's very complex sometimes and challenging questions that they ask in terms of society or the environment, that sort of thing, things that have big impact, optimize service delivery, and just improve the lives of citizens and environment. So that took a little bit to go. We'll hit a year at the end of April. And I just want to take a pause here in case you've heard of AltaML's other Talent Accelerator program, which is the Applied AI Lab. In case you're wondering, is this the same thing or how is it different? I'll just take a minute to describe the Applied AI Lab. And that one is a partnership with not government agencies, but with private industry. So you can see the range of partners that have signed on. It's a 3-year lab. So ATB Financial, Suncor, TransAlta, and Spartan Controls are the participating partners in this one. 240 people have come through or coming through the program. There's looked at 100 experiments, and there are a total of 10 cohorts, so 10 groups of 4 months. And right now is the hiring for the last one. And if anyone's interested, you can be a university student, a graduate, someone who's mid-career and wants to do a career change and wants to upskill. So if you go to AltaML's website and go to careers, then there's a link there for Apply AI Lab associate positions. The deadline's at the end of February for that one. Really interesting. And there's positions for ML developers, machine learning developers, as well as business solution consultants. So a couple opportunities there. And they hire about 30 people on for each 4-month lab. So not to be confused with GovLab, this is Applied AI Lab. So if we go back to GovLab now, that's what I'll talk about for the rest of the presentation. So this, the big goals here are, improve services to citizens, right? Become more efficient. Can we eliminate some of the backlog of applications or paperwork? Can we make services faster for the needs of the citizens? Can we build this ecosystem, this partnership between public and private sector to really drive adoption within the government agencies that don't have that ability right now? And can we also bring economic revenue from some of these solutions to also continue to fund the program? So if there's any opportunities that are good that could be shared to other agencies or publicly, then that would bring funding back into the lab. Those are the big objectives. But here's the part that I really like is the opportunity, which is really, I love the idea of upskilling, reskilling the public sector workforce in learning about what AI and ML can do and how to bring about a digital transformation within some groups that haven't had that exposure yet. We get to attract students and recent graduates and give them a chance to work alongside public sector to see what a job in the government would look like. How impactful is it to work in the government? And create solutions that can be operationalized. So the goal is not to do an experiment that is just a study and gets put on a shelf, but to actually do all the steps that it takes to bring this into operation, support it, and improve it. So it's there and benefiting people, not just in theory, but in actual practice. And we want to create this network of peers within the public sector as well to increase knowledge sharing, information sharing. You'll see that within different groups of different provinces or different cities that could share some of their solutions to accelerate the adoption into another group. And use emergent tech to create some advancements, upskill, and also strengthen our economy through this effort. So how does it work? It's a multi-tenant model. So there are different groups that can belong to the GovLab, only government agencies, but the anchor tenant is the Government of Alberta. They'll have 2 projects every 4 months that we'll work on for a total of 6 projects per year in a 5-year program. And then we have other groups that have joined in other cities, but it could be other government agencies or authorities or school boards, that sort of thing. So it's open to anything directly in government or linked to government. That's how that works. And this is our model, and we saw a lot of success in the Applied AI Lab, that private company lab, and so brought those learnings into the GovLab. And that includes AltaML providing program lead, delivery managers, data science managers, project delivery managers, technical leads, and access to developers and business consultants. The government agency will provide, an overhead lead, subject matter expertise from the business side and as well as from the data side. And then we have the residents that come in, and those are employees that join our lab and just work right alongside us and get that experience of upskilling while still being a government employee. And then we have on the academia side, we have our technical interns that are looking for, maybe they've done a degree or a second degree and they're looking for work experience, and they want to apply some research to a real world case and have an impact is usually the most common thing I hear, as well as business interns, right? They have knowledge that they would also like to apply to government situations. And there's three streams. The way the lab runs is we have this stream 0, which is constantly updating our backlog of opportunities of use cases. And so that goes through an interview process where we have screening criteria to understand where could we fit ML into a workflow. And then we have a feasibility study, and this all gets ranked. There are hundreds that are in this this log of opportunities, and it's a collaborative effort of ranking them on priority for benefit to citizens, benefit to the environment. It can be financial as well, like cost savings, for example, within the government. But it's also, is the data available and ready to be used? There's lots of reasons why a project can be a great idea, but it can get stalled. So, pardon me, this is a work in progress that we continuously update and evaluate. If a project has gone through, pardon me, if a project has gone through the feasibility study and is ranked as being a good use case to do a proof of concept, it'll move ahead. And then we work to get the data ready, get the right people on the team lined up, and then we kick off our proof of concept. And this is where our interns come in, and our resident from the government will come in, and we're a small team working together on a proof of concept for 4 months. So it's just to see at this point, is machine learning the right solution here? Can we build a pipeline, from data ingestion to experimentation to validation and see value out of this? And that's basically what happens in the proof of concept. It's shocking how quickly the time flies in 4 months, especially if you have data challenges or etc. And I would just say, this isn't a research institute. This is, it is also applied. If there is a commercial solution out there that exists, like if Microsoft Azure has a custom vision model that we can pull on, then that makes more sense, because we want to get these deployed as soon as possible, so they can be a benefit. So there can be applied solutions that are very, very appropriate to use. Then if it's gone through proof of concept and everyone's on board that this is a great solution, it goes to pilot and operationalization. And that is to really work with the tenant to build, test, and get it deployed and supported and used. And that is exciting when something makes it through to operationalization. Okay, well, the accomplishment since launch, like I said, this is the first year. We've had 8 use cases explored through proof of concept. $25 million of value identified so far in the solutions being deployed. 1 is in operation, 1 is being piloted, 2 more are ready to move to pilot, and 3 are identified as having high product commercialization. We go to lots of promotional conferences, etc., to spread the word to other government agencies and do knowledge sharing and let people know about the opportunity that exists to join the GovLab or to use some of the solutions within it. So this will get updated as we're midway through the third cohort. So these numbers will update in a couple months again, which is pretty exciting. So I think what I'll do now is describe a few of the projects and then go into a little more detail after that on a couple I've selected. So
I'll just sort of encourage folks, if you have any questions for Joan as we're going through, please put them in the chat and we can tackle those, and we'll obviously have a bit of a discussion afterwards as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could talk about this all day, and I've probably left out some important pieces. So if anything seems confusing, just put it in there. Or if you have ideas or questions, let's have a nice discussion after.
Yeah. So there is a bit of a question around the projects. Are they public facing or mainly for internal government or combination thereof?
Oh yeah. I'm just looking. So far, they're all internal, but that's not necessarily the final result. It's just a matter of the first deployment being, really an opportunity to test and then improve before something goes public. I think there's caution, right? And before something does go public. So some of these will, but some will not.
Right. And is the tech sort of exclusively AI ML applications, or is there a broader data, analytics or other data related concepts?
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I wonder how to answer that. The Government of Alberta also has another group that focuses on just pure digitization, just getting to the, from sort of a paper or non-data start to being, structured data to an extent. So then we would probably come in after that point to actually do some experimentation. But there's still, goodness, right? A project could still be 60% getting the data collected, labeled, and ready for modeling. And some of the models are light, some are deeper, and then validation, et cetera, and displaying dashboards and that sort of works too.
Right.
So,
and then sort of in terms of the model of how the solutions sort of operated, maintained, and enhanced, kind of once they're completed. I know it's still early days, but do you have a methodology or a process to, once they're turned over, how do you sustain them going forward?
Right. Well, so part of it, so Government of Alberta is, we're working in their environment, and with, especially when it's really confidential data that does not leave Government of Alberta workspaces. So the solutions are developed right in there and then supported. There's a sort of a transition phase where they'll support them fully at a certain point. But it depends on the client, right? So we have Government of Alberta, but also a couple other tenants. And so just depends on the maturity and the capacity to take on the projects, where AltaML can provide the full solution or partial support or none at all, right? So some will hand over, some projects will maybe be continued to work on. And so they'll sort of stay in a hybrid, or they might just be completely hosted by AltaML. So it kind of depends. It's sort of, we can do whatever is needed given the privacy constraints or the capability or capacity.
So some of the departments might have sort of internal, like ML ops, the ability to sustain it, and others might need some help.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's exactly. I've seen all across that spectrum of abilities. So.
Right, and then there's a question about sort of the options to sort of participate. You kind of have the three defined tenants, but like folks that are sort of consultants and that sort of thing, is there an opportunity to participate for those folks, or do they sort of sign up through the regular channels?
Oh, to join the lab? Yeah. So if anyone wants to join as an associate ML developer, that comes with training, networking, the ability to get work experience with support. And those are 4-month opportunities, so I can offer for some to return for 8 months, and then they have more senior responsibilities the second time through the program. So that the hiring works. Hiring in January for a May start, hiring in May for September start, and hiring in September for a January start. So yeah, every 4 months there's an opportunity to apply. And the expectations are pretty high. It's there is a technical test and an interview to really, in this particular lab, you already have to have some skills, but still has some gaps that you want to work on. Maybe it's communicating with clients, understanding the business side, how to deploy, that kind of thing. So it's opportunities, and it depends on the university, because this is all funded through a MyTax grant program to the university. They each have their own limitations and restrictions, or opportunities, I guess. University of Alberta undergrads can apply. That are current students, graduate students can apply, that are current students, and also recent graduates up to 2 years since graduation can apply for this work experience grant.
Right.
But University of Calgary, they have said no undergraduates, only current graduate level students can apply, and not recent graduates. So it really depends. And it's we have taken some Ontario universities that's going to continue to expand. It's defined by the university who they'll accept for this program.
Great.
Whereas Applied AI Lab is more open. There's no school restriction. There's no connection to academia. So it's definitely open to anyone. You could be someone, just wanting to change a career, or just already in a career but just want a different work experience, or recognize you just want to get into this lab to work with particular clients and network and that sort of thing.
So that might be a better fit for somebody who's kind of active, as a consultant or something like that already.
Absolutely. And I mean, our lab's still growing, so each time we get a new tenant, that means new projects, that means I'll need a new ML developer lead. So there's opportunities for hiring as full-time employees as well. It just has to happen at the pace of us getting new tenants to join. So you can always check back at AltaML's website. Every time we're going to hire, we'll post, and so that's an opportunity too.
So these kind of use cases, or solutions that you're developing, in terms of public information or things that are on your website, again, it's still probably pretty early, but is the intent to sort of have some of this available to the public? The information?
Yeah. Where possible. So GovLab.ai website will have just small videos just describing some of the projects. I'm not sure how to answer in terms of will all the code become available. I'm not sure if all the code will be posted up for people to get. Possibly not. It depends if the governments kind of own that, or if they're willing to share it or not.
Right.
So.
And there's a question about commercialization. Like, if something seems to be something that can be commercialized, like, how does that work? Do you have your other internal people that kind of do that commercialization?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a sort of a long handoff. Well, actually, the product team and the commercialization team, their business development team, they're sort of involved right from the beginning too, to assess if there's an opportunity. Remember, we talked about that use cases. So and kind of ranking them. One piece is there a commercial opportunity here? Because we do want to fund the GovLab through some of these solutions. So what is the opportunity, and does it make sense? They don't all have to. Some are just for the good of citizens, and that's just fine. But sometimes you see, oh, this is a great opportunity to commercialize. And so the product team also is involved all the way through, the feasibility, the ranking, into the proof of concept, getting the initial value scoping down, and the market, and then in the pilot, it gets a little bit more serious. And then if it is big enough, then it hands over the product, maybe over to software developers, et cetera, to get it.
All right, and in terms of handling the intellectual property, the IP related to this, I assume that that's very clear at the beginning of this, and I would assume it kind of resides with AltaML, but can you clarify that? How
Yeah,
that's
I don't know. I don't know if I can say. It is in the contract absolutely who owns the IP and how AltaML can profit off of it and within what time period. But it is defined that it is the government and that AltaML can participate to a certain extent. And I'll just leave it at that.
Mhm. Okay, well, there's other questions popping up, but let's get back to your presentation, and then
Yeah.
obviously there's lots of interest in this, Joan. So we'll let you get back to it at this point.
Right, and if we don't get through everything, or anyone wants to talk to me one-on-one, I'm on LinkedIn, but also be at DataCon talking about the conference in March. I'll have a booth set up for GovLab with another ML developer. If you want to come meet us there as well, that's another opportunity. Okay.
Super.
Yeah, so let's talk about a couple of these use cases. I just have a couple more slides to go through just to give you a sense of the scope of these projects, what kind of questions we're trying to answer, how we sort of approach solving them if there is a solution. So we worked with the Ministry of Forestry for quite a few projects actually, and they mostly center around forest health, which is looking at the health of the trees, if they're diseased or not, and particularly as it impacts wildfires. That's a big societal concern. There's value in those trees, both commercial value and monetary value for the logging companies, but also value in terms of nature and the ecology, the impacts of wildfires there. There's also safety concerns for people, both affected by the fires, but also those fighting the fires. And so that's what these, we had 4 projects looking at that. One was predicting, given weather conditions and other forest conditions and fuel types there, where the next day wildfires would occur. So breaking up the province into these management zones and saying this area is more likely to have wildfires the next day. And that helps in the wildfire branch being able to deploy both firefighters and equipment for pre-suppression work in the forest. And so this project actually was used over the summer, and then it's come back as to increase the spatial granularity as well as try to predict up to 3 days out if we can, given the weather predictions. So that one's a good one. Then we looked at some forest health ones. First, using sentinel imagery, so free imagery at 10-meter spatial resolution, trying to find areas where there are mountain pine beetle or spruce budworm outbreaks. And so that the really interesting challenge in that one is, how do you scale this to a whole province, right? How do you process that much data over time? It was really good. So we looked at stands of forest, and then we zoomed into the tree level, and we had 3 different types of data there to look at individual diseased trees, and that was using drones and very high resolution satellite imagery in that experiment. Then we also just looked at, well, where are areas where the trees have now been killed off from either mountain pine beetle or spruce budworm, and they're just standing dead trees. These areas they're basically like standing firewood, right? They will burn hot and fast, and they could really impact people that are nearby and property, etc. And so we looked at that too. Can we update this forestry data set that the government maintains with where these dead tree areas? We looked at animal vehicle collisions and predicting where those happen. So that's when like a deer runs out on the highway, gets hit by a vehicle. Is there any kind of spatial pattern to that? Are there hot spots where it happens more? And then why is it happening? And so that was part of the ML modeling, is trying to figure out what were the biggest contributors to the hot spots of accidents. And that really can help inform what the highway the transportation group does in terms of increasing public safety and also animal preservation as well. So that was an interesting project too. We looked at flood prediction, only as a proof of concept. We looked at education capital planning. I'll go into more detail on this one, but this is where do you put a new school in the province? What happens to the other schools? Where should you put the new school and what size should it be built? So that, the more money that can be saved by right sizing the school that's built, the more money that's available to build the next school. And then we looked at, on a totally different topic, this was looking at people putting in applications for construction. So a building permit application, trying to pre-screen that to see if it's complete and ready to be processed. Okay, let's go into a couple of them. This is an education one that I alluded to, optimizing. So you want to build the right size school and you want it to be utilized at about the right rate, around 85%, give or take 10%, right? That's about the size. You don't want schools that are built too small and they're overcrowded, or schools that are built and they're under attended. So this is has gone through proof of concept. We're in the pilot phase now, and the goal is to have this solution run in parallel to the capital planning group's existing solution. And so what they can do is put in the new school location. So this would be the school board proposes, like say Calgary school board proposes, public school board proposes, we'd like a new French immersion school in the northwest of Calgary to be 700 children in this spot. And so they can run all kinds of scenarios now with this tool and model that we've built. So they can drop the location of the school, say what programs they want to have, what school authority, what grades it'll service, and what areas it'll draw students from. Then the model runs, and then they get a whole bunch of visualizations that describe the impact of that new school. So you'll see a prediction of future growth, population rates of that school going out several years. You'll see the impact on the school that it draws from, and how that changes the numbers. And then you can move it and change the size of the school and have that discussion back with the school board on what the appropriate solution is. This one, I probably haven't mentioned it before, but I think in one of the first slides I mentioned ethical AI and responsible AI. And this is a really classic example of, here we have student information. This cannot leave the government site, right? We cannot use it at AltaML or any personal computer or anything. It's very secure where it sits and how we access it. The school information has to be anonymized, right? So we looked at hex binning, or there's other ways to anonymize location data. One way is grouping it together so that you can't figure out what an individual, where they live, a child lives, what school they go to, etc. So this is a classic case where responsible AI is front and center. We have to make sure the models aren't biasing certain groups, and it's not that we're providing a solution that's representative of all parts of society for ability to attend these schools. So that's this one. It's good. We're still working on it. I think it'll come back again after it's been run through the summer. And it is a big challenging project, but this is one of the reasons I love GovLab. Most of us would just love this opportunity to influence or somehow make it a little bit easier for the decision makers to have all the data available to them. Okay, this one was that Wildfire Occurrence. I'll just briefly cover it. And here you can see the dashboard that was built that just shows in the first version for the forest management area what the likelihood of a fire will be in their area. And so they can prioritize where to deploy equipment and people for pre-suppression work. And so the new version of this will go much more granular. Instead of just one probability of fire, it'll go many within the management area. And instead of just saying that day what's going to happen, to be able to plan 2-3 days out. Okay, and this is the mountain pine beetle detection. This was at the single tree level. And you can imagine the challenge of trying to find single trees within the whole province. So this would be if you had done the first screening with provincial appropriate level data, so maybe Sentinel-2 imagery or spot imagery, and you could cover the province saying this is areas where there's some infected trees, and then you'd go in to a region of interest. Maybe you have drone data, or you have aerial data, or high resolution satellite imagery. You load in the file, as you can see in this little demo, load in your file, it runs the tool, and then outputs the likelihood that there are some infected trees. And this is done with computer vision. Okay, and then this one was that construction permits, right? So I think most people feel the pain across quite a few government agencies, municipalities, that you can submit an application and it might just sit there and you're waiting, what is happening? You know, it can take more than a month for these construction permits to get looked at. And then if it's not complete, it just gets rejected and sent back. And so we're trying to decrease that time of feedback back to the applicant to say, with an ML model, we screened your application, it's not complete. You know, this is what needs to be filled in, and then we can really look at it. And instead of taking the time of the intake officers looking for this, can we train a model to do this work so they can do the more detailed stuff that the model isn't able to do, like that relates to building codes, etc. So yeah, in this first version, you just load up the application. So this would be internally facing, not facing the public right now, but just internally. It comes in. This is a chance, you run the model, then the team can verify whether or not they agree with the model results. Being this model is just trying to see if, okay, every building permit has to have a stamp from a professional. So it could be engineer or architect, depending on what the drawings are and what the application is. It could be engineering or technician or architect that would submit. And so they have a stamp, it has to be filled out in a very specific way. And so that's what this model is trying to say. In our first version of it, for feedback, the intake officer is loaded up. Here it is showing, okay, we found the stamp and the seal, and we found the date and the signature, etc. And they can either agree or disagree with how the model is performing, so that can feed back into the model to improve it. Yeah, and so this is in the pilot phase now, hoping to get deployed for in 2 months, and it'll still remain internal until such time as the model is, you know, has gotten the trust of the intake officers and it performs to the threshold numbers that we've set for it. So I don't know. I think most of us like it when wait time get decreased, and if this is a simple way, sometimes ML can be really boring. It's just looking for something that takes up a lot of people's time. It can scan through the 40 pages, find the stamp, say if it's complete or not, and if it's correct or not, and that saves everyone's time. They get on to the more complicated questions. Yeah, that's it. This is the wrap up of the presentation. A lot of positive feedback from the teams that we've worked with. Just this process of this really guided walkthrough, bringing in an ML solution, how to do it right, learnings of the whole process. Yeah, and that's it.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Joan. That's just fascinating, and lots of really great information there. Maybe you can stop sharing and we'll just kind of bring in folks for the Q&A session here. So again, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. If you want to ask your question, that's great. Just kind of raise your hand and I can call on folks. I'll go back to some of the previous questions, Joan. One is around sort of digital transformation and kind of asking about sort of the scope and scale of projects. I mean, do some involve end-to-end digital transformation, or are they kind of more limited to just the good use of AI, ML in a specific area?
I would say focus is on ML. Like, is there an ML solution here? And there has to be data. It can be public data, like data that we can find. So, for example, satellite imagery that's publicly available or can be purchased. That sort of thing is fine. But it has to be a level, because it's only 4 months for the proof of concept. So we can't, as it is, we probably have to spend a fair bit of time labeling data, like identifying what we're working on and building up. So yeah, they have to be at a point where we can get to an ML model within the 4 months, and hopefully a decent one too. So,
Right.
So
And
there's other groups that can help get there.
Yeah. I mean, the government of Alberta has sort of a digital transformation group. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but do you interface with that kind of organization?
Absolutely. Yeah, and actually the acting liaison with the government of Alberta also is the head of that. I think they're called the RPA. I believe the robotic. Sorry, I can't remember the exact name of it. Okay. But for example, we had a use case where he attended and he was able to say this project should start with us within the digital transformation group first, and then come over to ML when ready.
Right. So how many people would be involved in kind of the lab session projects on average?
For an individual project, there will be 2 ML developer associates. So those are our university students, our recent graduates. There will be a business solution consultant associate, also coming from university. Then there is a whole support team. So a project delivery lead, a product owner, myself, the data science manager, to oversee the project as well. There's a program manager. So it's sort of, I guess I would say probably 6 people are working fairly heavily on that one project. And sorry, I forgot to mention, there's also an ML developer lead who's coaching the ML developers through the process. So is that about 6, but 4 working full time on the project, and then this sort of overarching group that works on multiple projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are there sort of opportunities on the product side as you know, as opposed to the sort of the tech ML side of things as well?
Yeah, that comes under the business solution consultant role, and that can be from quite a few different backgrounds. People that apply maybe business degrees or finance, or it can be really very, very broad on who gets accepted in that. But if you have an interest in product, that is a great way to see a lot of use cases, how to prioritize and rank them, and then as the project progress, how do they operationalize? What's the next step for them? How do you grow this beyond the first client to the multi-client solution? Right.
So question talking about skills. So what skills do you think are most important or proven to be important other than the technical skills?
Oh, that I know, because if it was just technical skills, I would just take the highest GPA and that's who I would hire, right? But that is not how it works, right? I mean, obviously there's a minimum technical skill, and I like to match to the projects with if they have some special knowledge or experience to it. But there's a lot more that goes into that selection and the benefits. So, for example, communication skills, how to communicate technical concepts to a client that may not have a technical background. That's important. How to collaborate as a team. We just do everything as a team, so there's some humility there that it's the team success, and participate in any way you can to have the project be successful. So being able to do collaborative coding together, right, where you're working on the same code base together, following the AltaML defined structure. Other soft skills, understanding product, understanding dashboarding and visualizations to be effective in communication. We have public speaking group that meets every second week to work on our public speaking skills. Let's see. There's knowing how to work in an agile project, I guess, development. So we work in 2-week sprints, right? We look back on what was done the previous 2 weeks and what the main goals and priorities are for those 2 weeks. And so one of the skills is really, small tasks, check in frequently, and communicate if there's any blockers or any issues. But breaking up, these are big projects sometimes, breaking them to small, manageable 2-week and then daily tasks. That's the real skill that a lot of people work on, right? As opposed, and working collaboratively too, it can be a growth opportunity. Let's see, what else? Responsible AI, obviously, right, for the confidentiality and the consequences of some of these. Responsible AI is definitely something that someone needs to learn and incorporate and speak up.
Great.
I can probably keep going, but those are the main ones. Yeah, those are the main ones.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important question, right? Because we're all technically oriented, but we know that the key to success in many cases are some of the softer skills and relational skills, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, question about sort of how has AI and ML sort of the extent of usage of that in the work that you're doing, like compared to without AI ML? Like, I mean, is there clear evidence, right, that you're doing things that you couldn't otherwise do?
Yes, absolutely. And I should say, sometimes within the government, there can be great pockets of knowledge and success. And somehow this lab just brings a little bit of a consistent format, and then that upskilling and walk through the first projects to get them on. Sometimes groups are really, really well, knowledgeable, but they just don't have the capacity to take on extra work. And I think that's what we see with these MLs. If there's 200 opportunities, right, but there's only 4 people to work on them, right, then you're never going to get through all 200, because that number just keeps going up. So where I see it really being helpful is when I want to scale something to a provincial scale, or I really want to, kind of really up what's happening. I want to become more efficient in a workflow. So, that the construction permits where somebody's flipping through an application PDF that has hundreds of pages, right? For this one stamp, where I can just get the ML model to flip through, do computer vision, object detection, OCR, and then boom, output the report. I don't even have to write the email. I know what to send back as feedback. So that's where you see those wins. Sometimes it's on the boring things, but sometimes it's on exciting things too, where you can all of a sudden do something you couldn't do before. But now with the compute power, you can scale a model to a large area.
Okay. There's a question about the sort of the school optimization case there. Presuming it was trained on like historical data with demographics and that sort of thing, but can you incorporate things like gentrification, people's mobility, and immigration into the model, sort of at that higher complexity level?
So this is still early days on such a complex set of questions and solutions. These are very, I am so in awe of the talent of the people that are able to capture that much information and make a decision. This is just one piece that helps them make a decision to look at different scenarios. Right now, the scenarios start simple, and then we prioritize what additional features to add to them. So it hasn't gotten so far to extend to all the potential cases, right? It's just like we're systematically going through what needs to be done step by step to get there. I don't think this will be the end of this project, but we'll give them a chance. Sometimes it's good to take a break, let them work with it, and then use it in their cases in parallel to their existing workflow, and then give us the feedback, and we'll open up the project again and keep adding enhancements. But yeah, the immigration one, and also recognizing in ML projects what you can predict and what you can't predict is also important, to say the limitations of it, where it cannot do this. This is something out of scope.
Okay, well, we'll take one more question here and then we're kind of at our time, but it's really talking about your kind of development process and kind of the sort of the agile kind of process that seems to be used, and whether you might be moving to more of a kind of a DevOps project development in the future, or you're kind of happy where you are, or is it evolving in your thought process?
Oh, it is always evolving, right? And I think we're going to mature as the projects mature, to be honest. So when we're doing a lot of proof of concepts at the beginning, right, and just starting to get more things operationalized and then revisiting them and improving them, that sort of. So I could see us for sure changing the process to fit the appropriateness for the project. But yeah, always, why not? Always, let's always improve. And if it's appropriate, then yeah, let's do it.
Super. Well, thanks so much, Joan. There's clearly lots of interest in what you're doing and AltaML and GovLab, and it's fascinating. As you know, it's really great to see these kind of practical examples, because we hear so much about AI and ML and everything else, but to actually anchor it in some really fantastic optimization and government issues is really great. So thanks for that. Much appreciated. And we'll be seeing you around at Data for Good events. And thanks everybody else for joining us this evening. Take care, stay warm, and we'll hope to see you at the data conference on March 17th and 18th.
Thank you so much.
Have a great
Thank you.
Have a great night. Bye now.
So much.
Have a
Have a
good
good
night,
night.
everyone.
Have a good night.